The February wind sliced through Clare Donovan's jacket like a blade. She stood outside Sterling Tower, 23 and drowning in debt, gripping her portfolio so hard her knuckles turned white. The elevator climbed 42 floors. Her reflection in the polished doors showed paint-stained jeans and scuffed boots. She didn't belong here. Regina Walsh appeared in a suit sharp enough to draw blood. "Don't get your hopes up," Regina said, heels clicking against marble. "He sees dozens of artists." The office stretched before her, floor-to-ceiling windows framing Manhattan like a photograph. Jonathan Sterling turned from the view, and Clare felt the air shift. He wore wealth like armor. Charcoal suit, expensive watch. But his eyes held something she recognized instantly. The exhaustion of someone who'd stopped expecting joy. "Your sculpture," he said. "The woman carrying the world. It stopped me." Claire's throat tightened. That piece had been born from grief, cast from scrap metal after her father died buried in medical bills. "I want to commission you. 20 feet tall for the lobby. Budget isn't an issue." Her heart hammered. This could change everything. "I'd need to see the space. Understand the light. Come." He led her to a private studio. Real dust, real tools, half-finished projects. And dominating the room, an 8-foot slab of marble veined with gold and gray. "Carrara marble," Jonathan said quietly. "Same quarry as Michelangelo. I've been waiting to use it." Clare approached like it was sacred. "Because it was. I need to move it. See how the light hits from different angles. I'll help." She gripped one end. The marble was impossibly heavy, dense as bone. Her muscles shook with effort, face flushing hot. "It's too hard," she said, hating how small her voice sounded. Jonathan moved beside her, shoulder nearly touching hers. "Hold it with your hands. I'll take the weight. But you guide it. You see what I cannot." Their fingers overlapped on cold stone. Together, they lifted. The marble rose smoothly. Light poured through the translucent veins like liquid gold. Clare gasped. She could already see it. A figure waiting to be freed. "Do you see it?" Jonathan asked, and there was something desperate in his question. "Yes," she whispered. "I see everything." They lowered the stone carefully. Neither stepped back. Clare was aware of how close he stood. How he looked at her like she was something rare. "When can you start?" "Tomorrow. The studio is yours. Whatever hours you need." He paused. "I often work late myself. You wouldn't be alone." The way he said it made her breath catch. From the doorway, Regina watched with eyes like flint. She'd worked beside Jonathan Sterling for 8 years. Made herself indispensable. Been waiting for him to see her as more than his assistant. But the way he looked at this nobody in paint-stained jeans told Regina everything. This wasn't professional interest. This was the beginning of something that threatened everything she'd built. And she would burn it all down before she let some nobody take what should have been hers. The days blurred into marble dust and coffee steam. Clare arrived each morning as the city woke, her toolbox heavy, her heart somehow lighter. The studio became her sanctuary. Chisel against stone. The quiet presence of Jonathan Sterling. Most evenings around 8, she'd hear his footsteps. That confident stride. He'd appear with 2 cups of coffee, settling into the chair by the window with his laptop while she worked. They talked during those long evenings. "I grew up poor in Detroit," Jonathan said one night. "My father died in an industrial accident when I was 16. I built everything from nothing because I was terrified of returning to that helplessness." Clare set down her chisel, studying him in lamplight. "My marriage ended 3 years ago," he continued, voice carefully neutral. "Vanessa wanted the lifestyle. When she realized I'd never be the society husband she imagined, always working, always building, she found someone who would. Did you love her? I thought I did. But I loved the idea of not being alone more than I loved her. He met her eyes. We never talked like this. Never sat together in comfortable silence. She always needed noise, distraction, proof that she mattered. You matter, Claire said softly. Not your money. You. The person who remembers how I take my coffee. Something cracked in Jonathan's careful composure. No one has said anything like that to me in a very long time. The sculpture was taking shape. A woman and a man, their bodies intertwined not in passion but in support. Each holding the other up. The woman's face tilted toward sky. The man's eyes finally at peace. Regina noticed everything. The coffee cups. The late nights. The way Jonathan's entire demeanor changed when he talked about Claire's progress. She began her campaign with surgical precision. Small comments to other executives. The artist is quite young, isn't she? I hope she's qualified. Then to Jonathan directly. I ran a background check on Miss Donovan. Did you know she has significant debt? Medical bills from her father? I just want to ensure she's here for the right reasons. Jonathan's jaw tightened. Her financial situation is none of our concern. Her talent speaks for itself. Of course, Regina smiled, eyes cold. I'm only looking out for you. You know how people can be opportunistic. But her words planted seeds. Jonathan, who'd been burned before, felt old doubts creeping in despite himself. One evening in late April, a rainstorm rolled in suddenly. Thunder rattled the windows. I should get home, Claire said, looking out at sheets of rain. Stay. At least until it passes. I'll drive you home. They ordered Thai food, eating cross-legged on the floor like college students. The storm raged outside, but inside the studio felt removed from the world. Tell me about your father, Jonathan said. The real story. Claire was quiet for a long moment. He was magic. He could look at anything broken and see how to fix it. We'd walk through junkyards together and he'd find pieces of metal other people threw away. He taught me that nothing is garbage if you know how to see it properly. Her voice cracked slightly. He got diabetes when I was in high school. We couldn't afford proper care. By the time I realized how sick he was, it was too late. He died owing $60,000. I've been paying it off ever since. Jonathan moved closer. Without thinking, she leaned into him. His arm came around her shoulders, solid and warm. I'm not telling you this for sympathy, she said quickly. I just want you to understand why this commission matters. It's not just about money. It's about proving he was right. That I can take something raw and broken and make it matter. He was right, Jonathan said firmly. You don't need to prove anything. You already are everything he believed you could be. Claire looked up at him. The air between them crackled with electricity. His hand came to her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. Claire. The door burst open. Regina stood there, eyes blazing, phone in her hand. The board is threatening a vote of no confidence, she said, voice tight. They're saying you've been distracted. Absent from critical meetings. That you've compromised the company for personal reasons. Jonathan stood, his arm falling from Claire's shoulders. What are you talking about? Regina's smile was poison. They know about the marble. That you're spending company resources on a vanity project. They know you've been spending every evening here instead of doing your job. She turned her gaze to Claire, triumphant and cruel. They want to know exactly what Miss Donovan is providing that's worth risking everything you've built. Claire felt the blood drain from her face. Jonathan's expression hardened into something unreadable. Leave us, he said to Regina. Jonathan, the board meeting is in an hour. They're waiting for answers. I said leave. Regina left, but her victory hung in the air like smoke. The silence stretched between them. Jonathan stood by the window, hands in his pockets, no longer looking at Clare. Is it true? She asked quietly. Are they threatening you because of me? The board has been looking for reasons to push me out for months. Regina knows that. That's not an answer. He turned to face her, and the warmth from moments ago was gone. What do you want me to say, Clare? That this hasn't complicated things? That spending every evening here while the company hemorrhages hasn't raised questions? The words hit like a slap. I never asked you to be here, she said, anger rising. You chose that. Don't make me responsible for your choices. You're right. His voice was cold now, businessman cold. I did choose. And maybe that was a mistake. Clare felt something crack inside her chest. A mistake. I have responsibilities. A company. People depending on me. I can't just. Just what? Feel something? Let yourself be human for 5 seconds? That's not fair. None of this is fair. Clare's voice broke. You pulled me into this. You made me believe. She stopped, not trusting herself to continue. Jonathan's jaw worked. For a moment, she thought he'd take it back. Apologize. Reach for her again. Instead, he straightened his tie. Finish the sculpture, he said. You'll get your commission fee. But I think it's best if I'm not here while you work. He walked out without looking back. Clare stood alone in the studio, the half-finished marble sculpture mocking her with its intertwined figures. Support. Peace. Beautiful lies carved in stone. The next 3 weeks were torture. She worked alone, arriving before dawn and leaving after dark to avoid seeing anyone. The sculpture consumed her, became something darker than she'd originally envisioned. The figures still held each other, but now there was desperation in their grip. As if they were drowning together instead of lifting each other up. Regina appeared one afternoon, her smile saccharine. Just checking on progress. The board is anxious to see results. It'll be done on schedule. Good. Regina moved closer, examining the sculpture with false interest. You know, Jonathan asked me to handle all communication with you going forward. He thought it would be more professional. Clare kept chiseling, not trusting herself to respond. I warned him about you from the beginning, Regina continued. Young, desperate, drowning in debt. It was obvious what you were after. You don't know anything about me. Don't I? Regina's voice turned sharp. I know you saw an opportunity and took it. Can't really blame you. If I were broke and some billionaire showed interest, I'd play that card too. Clare's chisel slipped, gouging the marble. Get out. Gladly. But Clare? Regina paused at the door. Jonathan Sterling is many things, but he's not stupid. He sees you for what you are now. A pretty distraction. Nothing more. The door closed with a soft click. Clare stared at the gouge in the marble. Hours of work ruined in one moment of lost control. She sank to the floor, finally letting the tears come. That night, Clare made a decision. She worked through the darkness, changing the sculpture's final details. The woman's face, which she'd modeled unconsciously after herself, she altered completely. Made it generic. Universal. Erased any trace of personal connection. And the man's face, which had been taking on Jonathan's features, she left deliberately unfinished. Just smooth marble where the eyes should be. Blind. Unable to see what was right in front of him. At 3 a.m, she packed her tools. The sculpture was complete. Beautiful and cold and technically perfect. Everything he'd asked for and nothing he'd actually wanted. She left her building access card on the workbench with a note. Commission fulfilled. Wire the payment to the account on file. Don't contact me again. She was halfway to the elevator when she heard his voice. Claire. Jonathan stood in the hallway, tie loosened, exhaustion carved into his face. I thought you weren't coming here anymore, she said. I've been coming every night. After you leave. Just to see your progress. Why? Because I'm a coward. He moved closer. Regina lied to you. About what I said. About everything. Claire's heart twisted. I heard you, Jonathan. That night. You called me a mistake. No. I called my fear a mistake. My inability to fight for what I want because I'm terrified of losing everything again. He pulled out his phone, opening an email. This is Regina's resignation letter. I accepted it this morning. She'd been embezzling from the company for 2 years, using the board to manipulate me. When I started investigating, I found everything. Claire stared at the screen, not processing. She played us both, Jonathan said quietly. Planted doubts, twisted words, made us believe we were impossible. And I let her because it was easier than being brave. You hurt me. I know. And I don't expect forgiveness. But I need you to know the truth. He gestured toward the studio. Can I see it? The finished piece? Claire hesitated, then nodded. They walked together into the studio. Jonathan stopped when he saw the sculpture, his breath catching. The intertwined figures stood in desperate embrace. The woman's face was beautiful but impersonal. The man's face was blank. Unfinished. Empty where the eyes should be. You left him blind, Jonathan said softly. He couldn't see what mattered. Claire's voice was steady now. So I made sure everyone else would know. Jonathan reached out, fingers hovering over the smooth marble where the man's eyes should have been. I see it now, he whispered. Everything I almost destroyed. He turned to her, and his face was raw with emotion. I don't deserve another chance. But I'm asking anyway. Let me prove I'm not the coward I've been. Let me fight for this. For us. Claire looked at the sculpture, at the figures clinging to each other in desperation. Then she looked at Jonathan, really looked at him. You can't just fix this with words, she said. I know. So let me show you. He pulled out his phone again, making a call. This is Jonathan Sterling. I'm calling an emergency press conference for tomorrow morning. I have an announcement about Sterling Tower's future. He hung up, holding her gaze. I'm stepping down as CEO. Appointing a board-selected replacement. I'm keeping ownership, but I'm done letting this company consume my life. Claire's eyes widened. Jonathan, you can't. I already did. The paperwork is filed. He moved closer. You asked me once what I would choose if I had to pick between building an empire and actually living. I'm choosing to live. I'm choosing you. That's insane. You'd give up everything. I'm giving up nothing that matters. His hand found hers. Everything that matters is standing right here. Claire pulled her hand away. No. Jonathan froze. You don't get to do this, she said, anger and fear mixing in her voice. You don't get to blow up your entire life and put that weight on me. What happens in 6 months when you resent me for it? When you wake up and realize what you gave up? That won't happen. You don't know that. She was shaking now. My father did that. Made sacrifices he thought were noble. Worked himself to death trying to provide for me, and I spent every day after he was gone drowning in guilt because his sacrifice meant nothing. He died anyway. The debt remained anyway. His grand gesture just left me alone. The words hung between them, raw and bleeding. Jonathan's face shifted, understanding dawning. This isn't the same. Isn't it? You're making a dramatic gesture, throwing away everything you built, and expecting me to be grateful. To feel like I'm worth it. Her voice cracked. But what if I'm not? What if we try this and it falls apart and you've destroyed your life for nothing? Then at least I'll have tried, Jonathan said quietly. At least I'll have been brave enough to reach for something real instead of hiding behind board meetings and profit margins. Bravery and stupidity look the same from where I'm standing. Maybe. But staying safe hasn't made either of us happy. Claire turned back to the sculpture, to those desperate embracing figures. I need time, she said. Don't make the announcement tomorrow. Give me time to think. How much time? I don't know. Jonathan nodded slowly, defeat in his shoulders. I'll cancel the press conference. But Claire? He waited until she looked at him. I meant what I said. I'm stepping down regardless. Not as a gesture. Not to prove anything to you. But because you made me remember who I was before I became this. And I don't want to lose that person again. He left her alone with the marble and her doubts. Claire spent the next 2 days in her tiny Queens apartment, staring at the ceiling, unable to eat or sleep or think clearly. Her phone buzzed constantly. Messages from galleries who'd heard about the Sterling Tower Commission, wanting to represent her. Offers for interviews, features, exhibitions. The kind of opportunities she'd dreamed about for years. All of it felt hollow. On the third morning, her landlord knocked on her door. Package for you. Guy said it was urgent. Inside was a leather portfolio. Jonathan's handwriting on a note. Your father's tools. You left them in the studio. Thought you'd want them back. But inside the toolbox was something else. A small wooden box, hand-carved, clearly Jonathan's work. Inside that, a flash drive. Claire plugged it into her laptop. A video file. Dated 2 days after she'd first visited Sterling Tower. The video showed Jonathan alone in the studio, late at night, standing in front of the marble slab. His voice was quiet, talking to himself or maybe to no one. I don't know if I believe in fate. But I watched her look at this stone today like it was alive. Like she could see straight through to its soul. And I realized I haven't looked at anything that way in years. Haven't felt anything that way. He touched the marble, the same spot where their hands had overlapped. Regina thinks I'm being reckless. The board thinks I'm distracted. Maybe they're right. But for the first time since Vanessa left, since my father died, since I started building this empire to prove I was worth something, I felt like I could breathe. Jonathan sat down heavily, putting his head in his hands. I'm going to hurt her. I know that. I'm too damaged, too afraid. I'll panic and push her away because that's what I do. But God, I want to try. I want to be the person she sees when she looks at me. Not the CEO. Not the money. Just me. The video ended. Claire sat in stunned silence, tears streaming down her face. She grabbed her jacket and ran. The Sterling Tower lobby was chaos. News crews everywhere. Cameras. Reporters shouting questions. Jonathan stood at a podium, looking exhausted and resolute. Happy to announce that effective immediately, I'm stepping down as CEO of Sterling Enterprises. The board has selected. Stop. Claire's voice cut through the noise. Everyone turned. She stood at the back of the crowd, breathless, her hair a mess, still wearing yesterday's clothes. Stop, she repeated, quieter now, pushing through the reporters toward him. Jonathan's eyes found hers, hope and fear warring in his expression. You can't do this, Claire said when she reached the podium. Cameras flashed. Microphones thrust toward them. Claire. Not like this. Not as some grand gesture to prove you're worthy or to show me you care. She turned to address the crowd, the cameras, everyone. He's stepping down because I asked him to choose between his company and me. But that was wrong. She faced Jonathan again. I've been so afraid of being someone's sacrifice that I didn't see what you were really offering. Not martyrdom. Partnership. The same thing we did with the marble. You take the weight I can't carry. I guide us where you can't see. Together. Jonathan's hand found hers. What are you saying? I'm saying don't step down. Run your company. Build your empire. Be who you are. She squeezed his fingers. But let me be who I am too. Let's figure out how to carry the weight together instead of asking each other to set everything down. You're sure? I'm terrified. But I'm sure. Jonathan pulled her close, and the cameras exploded with flashes, but neither of them cared. He kissed her forehead, then spoke into the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. But there's been a change of plans. Regina watched from a coffee shop across the street, her perfectly manicured nails digging into her palm until they drew blood. This wasn't over. Not even close. She pulled out her phone, dialing a number she'd hoped never to use. It's me, she said when someone answered. I need your help. There's someone who needs to be dealt with. On the screen of her laptop, open to Claire's background check, she'd circled one line in red. Father, Martin Donovan. Death certificate, pending investigation. Regina smiled. Some secrets, once uncovered, destroyed everything.